My name is Emmanuel Amowe Izodowa, the founder and the coordinator general of the Association of Great Benin Descendants. I'm also an historian. We've had situations of a lot of calls that has been made, a lot of social media rantings from some persons who should have known better. And as a patriotic Benin citizen, I wish to address some of these issues that are rearing their head in a very wrong manner. There are some sections of people who feel that they can gulp on the gullibility of some general Idah people and thereby distort the history of our land and also denigrate and desecrate the revered throne of the Oba of Benin. It is pertinent at this very instant for I to address some of the fallacies being raised as facts. And I hope with these facts that I've studied for quite a long time now as regards the true history of Edo land, we'll be able to address some of the lingering issues that has begun to sort of deceive the minds of Edo people far and wide. I've received quite a lot of questions from people, both in the house and in diaspora, who feel that these issues should be well trashed out. And by God willing and our ancestors, I will be able to trash them out one after the other based on facts that are verifiable in historical archives all over the world. Thank you. A lot of unnecessary eyebrows have been raised as regards whether Obaeware II Ogiviga actually got married to two sisters or not. As a matter of fact, yes, he got married to two sisters. And I would like to ask, what customs of the Edo people that clarifies or that sanctions the practice of marrying two sisters as abomination? I've read through all the archives, the customs and tradition of the Edo people. There is no part of the Edo tradition and custom that certifies that the act of marrying two sisters, it's incest or it's an abominable act. There are no such laws in Edo land. Raising unnecessary eyebrow doesn't create such law. And again, Oba of Benin is the law himself. He creates and makes the law. However, we understand there are checks and balances as to the power of the Oba of Benin, as the rulership of the Oba of Benin is not autocratic. Hence, he has classes of Ehaime, chiefs, that help him in shaping the affairs of his kingdom. So the power of the Oba of Benin is not autocratic. It has checks and balances in creation of offices that ensures that the kingdom is run smoothly. However, the Oba is the law. There is no such laws that I have also read in African soil that discredit the marriage of two sisters. I will buttress. We have had situations whereby two identical twins, girls, because of the inseparable bond amongst them, were willing to marry, to have one husband. And it has happened several times, both in Nigerian soil and in African soil. These issues are all over in the news. There have never been any time it raised an eyebrow. I have also recorded it has happened in Edo land, at Uhunde, how a man married two sisters as well. So if, according to the Benin cosmology of reincarnation, and we strongly believe that Obaeware II is the reincarnation of Obaeware I, we understand that Obaiwara the first that reigned in the 15th century married 3 sisters. And moreover, I am very much informed and aware that the 2 sisters in question, our queen, the Oloi, the Iloi rather, they are happily married to the Oba of Benin, and there is no disharmony, and it was not a forced marriage. So how come some of these people begins to raise petty questions that does not have any historical background or any historical support, no historical support as to whether it is against the laws and customs of our land, because I have already established that Oba himself is a law. He establishes whatever law that he thinks it's good for the people, and he discredits whatever law that he thinks is bad for the people. Like I've said, there are checks and balances to his power, so no one could be able to say that he's not a fair and just king. He's a fair and just king because when the laws are being created and sanctioned by him, there are checks and balances that ensures that this law do not favor just the palace alone, but the entire Benin people. Like I've established, there is no law or custom in Edo land that discredits the marriage of 2 sisters who are willingly to get married to a man. Let us get this very clear. Who are the Aborigines? In the first question that was raised, I tried to attempt it, but rather I want to make it very explicit. I've established first, before now, that the people you call Idu people, the people you call Igodomigodo people, the people you now call Ubini, that was mistranslated as Benin by the Portuguese, the people you now call Edo, are the same people. There are situations where countries changes name by the amount of civilization that comes forth. For example, few years ago, my name was Marvis. That was the name my parents gave to me. And I realized that it no longer suits my consciousness of my being a Benin patriot. So I decided to say from henceforth, I no longer should be addressed as Marvis. I'm not being addressed as a Zodowa. Does that mean that because I've changed my name from Marvis to Zodowa, I'm no longer the same person? So, Idu, Igodomigodo, Edo, or Benin are the same people that the name changed from one era of a particular Ogiso to another era of a particular Oba. So, when you talk about the dynamism of culture, one of the essential of the dynamism of culture is change, and change is what has bridled the change of names from one reign of a divinity, like the Paidu that we credit to be the progenitor of our race. The land at one point in time was named after him. There was even a time that the name was even called Akaland, one of the sons of Paidu. And there was a time it was now called Igodomigodo, named after the first Ogiso, Igodo. Then along the line, the name became Ubini, a place of heavenly pageantry. And of course, at one point in time, Baiwai the first came and said that because of the sacrifices that one young man did for him, he therefore named this land Edo. So, who knows, in the next 50 years, an Oba can come, or 100 years or 200 years, and says that I no longer want my kingdom to be called Edo. This is the name I wish the kingdom to be called. Whether you agree with it or not, it becomes the name. Some people still want to bring the ancientness of the kingdom by calling it Igodomigodo. It's allowed. Whether you are an Igodomigodo son or daughter, we are an Edo son or daughter, you are a Benin son or daughter, we are all aborigines. I do accept at one point in time, because the kingdom was furtherly stretched to become an empire. An empire is a situation where it's a phenomenon where there is a structured monarchical and governmental power that oversees more than a kingdom. So if there were more than one kingdom in the old Benin Empire, so that means there were also people that were not necessarily Benin, whether they might not have been conquered, they might have submitted willingly so that to get the protection of the Benin people. So there were influx of other ethnic groups into the capital of the then old Benin Empire. There were acculturation. Some of the people who were not necessarily Benins, all right, like if you are Oriowe, if you're a foreigner who has distinguished yourself in having served the kingdom or the empire and having served the Oba, there are times levity. It's just like a Nigerian who has spent quite a lot of years in United States or Canada, who is now given a residence permit and all that. So it also happened at one point in time in history. Some of these foreigners that came to the Edo land were also given that green card of becoming an indigene of the land. So when you are talking about the aborigine of the Edo people, you're talking about the people who started these lands, and there are no parameters for we to figure out who are the aborigines and who are not the aborigines. But one thing is certain, we are all Edo people that shares the same kingdom and have one Oba, and it's Oba of it is fallacious to say that Oba Romeyan waged war against the aborigines, because in the first place, Oba Romeyan is an aborigine of the land. Traveling, if my great-grandfather, he left Nigeria probably 120 years ago, and I was born in United States of America, and that's where my grandfather was born, that's where my father was born, that's where I was born as well. And I decided to return back to Nigeria, notably Benin Kingdom, my place of origin. It doesn't make me a foreigner. It doesn't make me, yes, I was born and raised in America. I'm partly an American, but I'm ancestrally Benin. So it's the same scenario that happened. Oromia was not a foreigner in Edo land. So he couldn't have waged war against the aborigine because he himself is an aborigine. You don't wage war against your people. So it is easy for people to dwell in fallacies that are not historically proven. In 1971, when Jacob Wade-Arara published his work titled Origin of the Edo People, he was asked a question that, did Oromia, the same questions being raised today, did Oromia conquer Benin? He laughed. He answered the question rhetorically and said that you and I know that the only war the Benins ever lost was a war against the British in 1897. So Oromia never brought war to Benin because Oromia is a Benin proud son. There is no way you can bring war to succeed. What was the name of the war? What generals? What was the name of the general that led the Oromian war against the aborigine of the land? There are no such historical records. There were never any such historical record, and there will never be any of those such historical records. Oromian came in, even before Oromian came into Benin, a palace was already built for him by the Ejion. At that time, they were Ejionisen. So, how come you wage war against the people that had already accepted you before you ever got to this land? Everybody knows the story of how Olia Awoma led the other delegates of the Ejions to go and trace Oromia. So there is no such historical record as Oromian waging war against Benin. If there are, they should bring it from historical archives and not propagating fallacies that does not beckon on true history of the Edo people. So there is no such thing like Oromia waging war on the aborigine, because Oromia himself shares a long line of the aboriginal blood of the Ogisos. The Idah and Oba Eseki's relationship during the Idah and the Benin relationship during Oba Eseki's reign It's a relationship of conquest and deception. Sometimes I want to, for the first time or in a very long time, a lot of persons still believe the story of the Imagweo. That is what led to the Benin Idah War. From the recent research, well documented, that was not what led to the Benin Idah War. The true story of what led to the Benin Idah War was a Christian Obaisigi trying to force the Christian religion on the Benin people, and the Idion revolted. And the only way they could make him serious was to conquer Obaisigi and his army so as to have an absolute control of a kingdom that no longer has a king. So they have heard of a kingdom of Idah who was also a superpower. So they had contacted the Atta of Idah to wage war against the Benin so as to make Benin subservient to the Idah kingdom so as to win. It was a good offer to deny. So the Atta of Idah accepted to wage war against the Benin. The Benin, the Obaisigi was not the person who instrumented the war. It was the Idion of the land, the elders of the land, the chiefs of the land, that was the instrumental factor that led to the Benin Idah War. But however, Idah actually brought the war to Benin, almost succeeded. But for the same belief that Obaisigi had, which was the Portuguese army using guns, the Benins were able to repair them off. Now, at that time, Benins were not divided. The part of the Benin that wants to Christianize the empire, and the part of Benin that wants the tradition and the custom of the Edo people to be retained, just like the way it was practiced long before Obaisigi became the Oba of Benin. So it was the division. It is not a division between any aborigine or that the Oba was separated from the people. It was basically on the division of religion that caused the Benin Idah War. Obviously, the Benin eventually won that war and made Idah a vassalage of the greater Benin Empire. Idah became part and parcel of Benin Empire till 1897. A lot of persons are trying to raise that the Idah people defeated the Benin people. No, the Idah people never defeated the Benin people, because you can't defeat a people and you not become subservient to the people you've defeated. You can't defeat a people and become a vassalage of that kingdom. You can't defeat a kingdom and become a vassalage. Everybody knows that. In 1897, Idah people used to supply their egele, their finest breed of their sons, down to Benin to perform some services in the palace of the Oba of Benin, because they were vassals in the palace of. They were subordinate to the Benin people, and they were meant to serve the services of the kingdom. And so the relationship of the Idah and Benin people, it's the relationship of conquest and deception, just like I've said.
Yay! Ago! Yay! Ebi pa mi o. Ọmọ lè gbé sasá wo. Ẹ sọ ọkọ̀ bọ́nà rọ̀ ká yìí.